Commandment 7, Part 4, What to Do Instead. Whenever we look into what it is that we're supposed to be doing instead of adultery, we're able to find a couple different verses in the Bible that talk about the importance of your body and the sacred union of marriage. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 13, in which it said, "Meats for the belly and belly for meat, but God shall destroy both it in them. But the body is not for fornication, but for the Lord's, and the Lord is for the body." Here it talks about how there are certain things that are supposed to go together and be in union, which is why it begins by talking about how there are things like food or meats, as it says in this verse, that are specifically for the belly. These things go together. No other part of our body can take or benefit from food the way our stomachs do. This whole concept here is important to understand because of the next relationship that is being talked about in the last part of this verse, where with this one it instead talks about opposites, how the body was not made for fornications. This word fornications means the voluntary sexual intercourse between unmarried persons who are outside the marriage. This here follows the same kind of idea that this whole commandment here is about. However, the important word to take away from this definition here is the word voluntary. What this means is that there is nothing that is making it so that we have to, so to speak, do these immoral acts. It is all up to us. Due to this, whenever we start to answer this question of what we are supposed to be doing instead, part of the answer is that we are simply not supposed to do it. These aren't the only verses that address and talk about this same issue here. In 1 Corinthians chapter 7, verses 1 and 2, in which it says, "Now concerning what you wrote to me, it is good for a man not to touch a woman, but because of the fornications, let each have his own wife, and let each have her own husband." Through the wording of this verse here, it talks about it is good. Means it is more of a suggestion, not a commandment necessarily. The idea of celibacy is not for everyone, and it has its place and its benefit. Verses like Matthew chapter 19, verse 12, talk about the idea of celibacy. Marriage isn't something that is required for us to do. We are able to still make it into heaven if we don't marry. However, we are still needing to follow this seventh commandment here and to not engage in these intimate acts before marriage, which is why this next verse in 1 Corinthians is such an important verse to follow it. Through these verses, it talks about how it's honorable and valid to either be single or married, which each having their own purpose and their own calling. Which is why it starts in this second verse here. It addresses the issues of sexual immorality, whatever that entails. All of this is why we are told that we can be united together in a marriage, where we are told to only have either one wife or husband. It is worded this way to emphasize the exclusivity and the sanctity that is supposed to come with the marriage bond. In this verse, it mentions that both men and women alike. This is done to show the mutual responsibility that is required in this bond. It is not something that would only apply to men or only apply to women. It is a call where both husband and wife are called to a standard and a requirement to be faithful to the other. Other verses like Ephesians chapter 5, verse 22 through 33. This section of scriptures was used to describe in detail the mutual love and respect that is required in a good, strong Christian marriage. All of that is also mirrored the kind of relationship that Christ had with the church. Hebrews chapter 13, verse 4. "Marriage is honorable in all, and the bed undefiled, but fornicators and adulterers God will judge." When it comes to marriage, it is not just the kind of social contract. Marriage is something that emphasizes the universal respect and sanctity. Looking into marriage as a biblical context, it is a covenant reflecting God's relationship with His people, with Christians. The call for all to honor marriage underscores the foundational role that it provides in society and for the church. By doing this, it promotes stability and reflects God's order. The defilement of the marriage bed through immorality undermines the covenant nature of marriage, and it also distorts the image of Christ's pure relationship with the church, because Christ and the church were compared to as a holy marriage. Adultery is something that is to be taken seriously because, as this verse ends with, that God will judge them. It is used as a solemn warning of divine accountability.